Hey guys, so whether you are watching this on YouTube or you picked up my telehealth tech setup checklist, I just wanted to make this video to kind of walk through everything that I have on here instead of writing pages and pages about my opinions of these different things and like what you need. So I really thought that this would be a good resource to have this list of like all the tech pieces that I recommend. Because this is probably like one of the top three questions that I get asked all the time. It's like, what piece of hardware should I have for this? What piece of software should I use for this? And so these are just all my recommendations. And we're gonna talk through these a little bit. And I hope that this helps. So, um, let's see. So number one, we need a computer. And hopefully, if you are jumping into telehealth, a computer is something that you have access to. People have asked, like a phone or a tablet versus a computer. I personally like having a laptop is what I use to conduct my telehealth sessions because I feel like there's more that I can be doing like all at one time. I can pull up the screen share pretty easy, and it feels like I have more access to help my patient during the interview versus like if I were doing it on my phone. So I would recommend having a laptop or a desktop. I like the laptop because it is fairly mobile. So even though I can have, like a good home base here at my desk, I can still pick up the laptop and move it with me around the room or like go somewhere else if I have to show my client something. But I do know that there are other clinicians out there. I have a friend who has a desktop. I'm pretty sure it's a Mac that has a webcam up top. And then the webcam, the aspect ratio allows the client to see the entire room. So like her desktop obviously stays put, but then when she gets up and moves around the room, the client can see like everywhere that she goes in the room. So pros and cons to both. I've also been asked like, whether you should get a Windows computer or a MacBook or a Chromebook, anything like that. Obviously, they all have pros and cons. I personally have always been like a Windows user, a PC user, an Android user. So I've been like on this side of the fence, and there's like a whole argument you can get into like Apple versus Android, Windows versus Mac. But honestly, you just need a computer that works. So like if you already have a laptop or a computer that functions and does fine, then perfect. Like you don't need to go out and buy a super fancy laptop or anything unless you really want to, unless you have the funds to, or you don't have a laptop. Which in that case, if you for some reason do not have a laptop or a desktop available to you, I would start to look for a laptop that is on the cheaper side that functions well, versus like investing in like an $1,800, $2,500 laptop. I would just pick something that works and works well and functions for what you need it to do versus getting something that's super souped up, at least to begin with. And then there's video. Obviously, that part is great to have the video because like the patient can see you. And if you're not doing an in-person visit, like having face-to-face interaction still provides a lot of benefits in terms of communication between you and your client. So we need some kind of video, and most laptops come with a built-in webcam. So I would just start with that, use that, and then you can worry about upgrading in the future. But for some reason, if your laptop does not have a built-in webcam or you're using a desktop computer and you don't have a webcam, you can always purchase an external one that just plugs into the USB port. And I'll look for some links of some different products and I'll put them in the description. But the video needs to be good for you, a webcam, on the computer, but then most of my clients just end up using their phones. So most phones now, if not all of them, have a built-in front-facing camera. And then audio, we want to be able to talk to each other and hear each other. So again, most laptops built-in speaker. You can also get external speakers if you really want them, and they would just plug in with a USB. But I would just use the built-in speakers. Or like, this is another recommendation, for me in my practice, I have my own office here. I can close the door most of the time, while my boyfriend's at work. I'm just here with my dog. So there's no like chance of somebody, hearing what's going on in our visit. So like, no issue with privacy or anything. But, if you are in a place where there might be like tons of people around, I think it would be better. And I would recommend getting either headphones or earbuds so that, you maintain your patient's privacy when they're talking to you. And then, you can get headphones or earbuds that have a built-in microphone. But otherwise, your laptop will have a built-in microphone. And you can also get an external microphone. So like, I have this little guy that I got on Amazon to help me record videos and podcasts. It's okay. It's fine. I think that helps the audio quality a little bit compared to just my laptop. But it's okay. It's not like necessarily needed. If you really wanted to improve your audio quality, I would recommend getting something like the Blue Yeti microphone, which will make a big difference. But, to start off with, I would just use what you have, and see how that goes. Then website. I've heard this now quite a few times from like consumers, and then also from other business owners, that if like somebody is considering working with you in your business and they go to look you up online and you don't have a website, that kind of discredits you as a business, even though like it shouldn't necessarily. But if they can't find you online, it's almost like you're not officially a business. And then, with this, if you are putting together a telehealth business, you need to have some kind of home base where people can find you. And Facebook is great, Instagram is great, but to have a professional appearance, I would highly recommend having a website. And there are a few different options here that I put on here. The different softwares that I recommend here are the ones that I've used and that I really like, but there are countless options out there. I personally right now use Wix. I have a premium version of Wix so that I can connect a custom domain, and there are like a bunch of other features that go with it, but I really like Wix's website builder. It works really well and allows you to customize a lot of different aspects of your website without having to learn like a ton of coding and stuff. I originally started with a WordPress website, and I know a lot of people love WordPress and there's a lot that you can do with it, but I just felt like it was taking too long for me to try to learn how to use it. And I am in the business of, providing physical therapy, working with clients. I'm not in the business of website building. So that's why I decided to go onto Wix. I also had tried Squarespace before. I think Squarespace is even easier to use than Wix is, but Squarespace is pretty limited on like the customization and design functionality on the website, which is fine because you'll still end up with a good looking website, but I just found that it was a little bit more limited for me. But it was really easy to use. And then the other thing that you can do is G Suite. I feel like G Suite is like almost underrated, and the things that it can do. There's a lot that is included with your membership here that like a lot of people don't really take advantage of. So like G Suite already has Google Sites on it, which is its own website builder. And you can see like here, it's just drag and drop the same way that Wix is, and Squarespace too. But you can add a lot of different elements. And it makes a pretty nice looking website. And it also, like transforms across devices, which is a cool thing that Squarespace and Wix does. So like if you make a website for desktop, it'll automatically change all the elements so that it looks good on mobile as well. But I think Google Sites is definitely worth looking into. It is going to be a lot more basic in terms of a website builder versus something like Wix. But I mean, if you're just looking to throw something up, it's really easy to use, and it's also, essentially free because it's included with your G Suite account. And I'm pretty sure you can connect a custom domain to it as well. So something to look into with this. But then like another thing about having just like a one-page website, this is really important because like the websites of years past that are often referred to as like a more brochure style website are no longer functioning in the way that we want it to. So this could be a whole discussion, and in the course that I have, we do a whole section on website audits, but we want to make sure that the website that you build not only is there to show that like, hi, I am a business, but we also want it to function, so that if a potential client goes to your website, they know exactly what they need to do in order to work with you, AKA generating revenue for your business. And so with a one-page website, I can make another video on this another time, but you essentially want to call out your audience and then have like an immediate call to action for like, what does the potential client need to do in order to move on to the next step, whether it is, learning something, it's an educational resource, or it's booking a call for a free consult with you. So make a very simple website. If your website has more than like a couple pages, you don't really need them, because nobody really reads them anyway. But we can talk about websites another time. Just pick a builder, pick something that works for you, and then make the website as simple as possible. Just get some water. And then obviously EMR. Whether you're providing medical services and you need something for medical records, or you're just doing something like health coaching where you don't technically need like full medical documentation, you should be keeping track of what you're doing somehow. So we need some kind of documentation method. So manually, this is something that is cool about G Suite, is that, if you sign the BAA, like I have over here, we'll talk about that in a second, that makes things on your end, it confirms with Google that the things that you're doing, you need the HIPAA compliance. Like it helps to make it secure. And I know there's like more that goes into that. I'm not an expert on it, but in order to like make your G Suite HIPAA compliant, you need to sign the BAA with them. But then that means you can use Google Drive and Google Docs and make your own documentation templates in Google Docs or in Google Sheets, and then just use that as your documentation template. And your documentation system. And like every client can have their own folder. You type up their notes, save it as a PDF with your signature and the date, and you're good to go. There's your notes. So pretty simple. If you already know how to use this stuff, this is something that you could start with, because again, if you have the G Suite account, it's free. And by the way, G Suite, the basic version, is only $6 a month. So very cheap to get started compared to some of the other ones. On the flip side, if you would rather have like an entire system of things and like want everything possible to be included in one software and one system, you might want to look into some of these softwares here. My favorite by far has always been IntakeQ. It does almost everything that you need. It has a scheduler. It lets you do your notes. You can make note templates. You can invoice through it. You can bill through it. It'll make super bills. It keeps track of your clients. Your clients each get a client portal and a client chart. So there's so much that goes into it. And something else that people really like about it is that you can send your intake forms and consent forms through it. And then I've had clients tell me that they really like filling out their forms online. They can do it right on their phone before they come in for their appointment. I've been seeing this one a lot, recommended by a lot of people, is Hello Note. I've never used it, but a lot of people are using it right now. A lot of other people also recommend PT Everywhere. And then Simple Practice is another one that I have seen thrown around. I almost used it. I ended up going with Intake Q, but they're all really good. They all have a lot of features, so I'd recommend, looking these up and seeing if any of these would work for you. But if you want something pretty simple and cheap to start off with, then I would recommend this. Excuse me. And then moving on to scheduling, I forgot to put this on here, but obviously you can manually schedule, just talk to your client and pick a time on the calendar and agree to when your appointments are going to be. Otherwise, like I talked about with Intake Queue, you might have a calendar that integrates with your own like Google Calendar or Apple Calendar, where you can send somebody a link and then they can pick a time that works for them and they can go ahead and schedule. So you could always use that to schedule. And then some other options here, obviously, again, G Suite. You can use Google Calendar. And if you have the G Suite account, which is the business version of Google Calendar, you can set up appointment slots and actually send a link straight from your Google Calendar to somebody and ask them to pick an appointment time. And what they've started adding in as well recently is if you make an appointment with somebody on the business version of Google Calendar, you can actually add video conferencing in right to that appointment. So when somebody gets the appointment confirmation and the reminder, the conferencing link is right there. And currently it integrates with both Google Meet, which we'll talk about in a second, and Zoom. So you can just like set it to Zoom if you have that option, and make the link right there available. And then just some other popular options. There's Calendly, Acuity, and Appointment. I believe Calendly and Appointment are cheaper than Acuity for the premium versions, but I believe they all have free versions, just with like limited features. I personally really like Acuity. I would show you it, but I don't want to put up my patient names. But one thing that I really like about it is the fact that like when you open it, it has a calendar right there. So like I can see what's on my own schedule and I can schedule with clients right there, versus like with Calendly and Appointment, you have to send the link to somebody in order to schedule it. So I just like being able to see like my entire week at a glance and see where I can fit people in. And then it also has the ability where I can send a link to somebody for them to schedule an appointment. So I personally really like Acuity. I think Google Calendar could work just fine, especially if you're first starting out. And then, obviously, like I used Intake Q for a really long time. And I really liked their scheduler, and they had like a scheduling widget. I could also see the week at a glance. Really useful, and I'm sure that the other ones have this as well. And then G Suite, like we've talked about this whole time, definitely get a G Suite account. You'll have a business email with your own domain, which is something I want to add on here. For the website, you need a domain and hosting, and I can put some links in the description below for that. But for example, like I have my email is morgan@thewellphysio.com, versus having it be like morgan@gmail.com. That's a little bit less professional. But so you get a business email with your own custom domain, and you can use Google Voice, which is what I use right now for my business phone number. So like if you wanted to kind of keep like your personal phone number and your business phone number separate, which is pretty nice, because then, for example, like in the evening, you can actually put Google Voice on Do Not Disturb so that, you don't get any text messages or calls from clients in the evening, unless you want to take them then. But it helps set up some boundaries and barriers for you. So, yep, both of these. And then like your business email, it looks just like regular Gmail, except it's in G Suite. And then there are a few other things like video conferencing now appears in the G Suite Gmail. So pretty simple with that. And then um, video conferencing platform for telehealth visits. So it might be part of your EMR system. I know IntakeQ just integrated their own like telehealth platform that you can get for $10 extra a month. Some of these ones might also have that. And then, if you're using G Suite, like as your EMR and your documentation, you can actually use Google Meet, which is very similar to Zoom if you've been using Zoom, and it's free and it's also HIPAA compliant. So that's a really good option. I like that one a lot. They also have Zoom for Healthcare, which is HIPAA compliant, but if you get it on your own, I think it's, at least at this time, it's about $200 a month, which might make sense for some businesses, but it's very expensive for a solo entrepreneur. But they also just struck a deal with IntakeQ, where you can add on HIPAA compliant Zoom for just $30 a month, which is really nice. If Zoom is something that you really like and you've enjoyed using and you want to keep using, works for you and your patients, then you could always look into this. And at least at the time that I'm recording this video, I'm not affiliated with IntakeQ. I'm not affiliated with any of these products, actually. These are all just like my very honest opinions, and I love IntakeQ. And then I also have friends who use Doxy.me as their telehealth video conferencing platform, and Doxy.me has both a free and paid version. So yeah, that's kind of a run through of everything on the telehealth tech setup checklist. If I missed anything, please comment and let me know below. There are definitely like other things that go into building a business and getting you set up, but I just know that like all the software stuff and like the tech on the back end, these are all things that I get asked about all the time. So I wanted to put it all together as a resource, and just let me know what questions you have. The only other thing I can think of is just like intake forms and consent forms, which like I mentioned, you can make with IntakeQ. You can also make with Google Forms in Google Drive. And then I'm sure these other ones have options for intake forms as well. So great. So hopefully this was helpful. Like I said, let me know if I missed anything. Let me know if you have any questions or comments. But otherwise, I can't wait to see you guys with your telehealth practices, your telehealth businesses, all the great things that you're going to do. And good luck treating your clients.